By the way, go back and watch Bloodsport. Everyone listen to this show. Do yourself a favor and watch Bloodsport. It has got to be one of the worst movies ever, but it's great. It's great in so many different ways. But I caught it the other day, and my son started watching it. And I started watching it with him, and my son and my daughter and myself, we were just all like, I'm glad that my kids got to not only see it, but they kind of understood like how cheesy it was. But back then, it was like a badass movie. Badass martial arts movie. And Van Damme was jacked. He was in amazing shape.
And flexible too. I mean, he could do splits between chairs. And, yeah. I think he's coming back. I saw him on a commercial where there was 2 diesel trucks and he was doing the splits between them. I'm like, he is still around.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. He's, but his physique, right? I mean, just the symmetry, his chest and everything. So I aspired to do that, and then started working out, played football in high school, defensive end, really wanted to be a bodybuilder. So after 5 years of putting in the work, I was like, well, I don't look like these guys I'm looking at in the magazines that I've been learning from. So my buddy who taught me about carb cycling and macros and everything like that, also taught me about gear and anabolics. And so I did a couple cycles, really hurt my back deadlifting. And so I was like, it was like 5:15 and I was dieting down. It was after a test trend Winnie cycle for those that care about. And so I got really, really strong really quick. And then, so right now I'm like 185. My first cycle, I got up to 235. Okay. Strong, like way strong.
Crazy difference.
It was, a lot of people were like, no way, but I've shared I've been really open about it on Instagram. So I've shared some pictures and people are like, dude, I don't recognize that person. My face was so much bigger. I was not healthy. This wasn't a healthy 235. But I was a lot stronger. And so, I hurt my back really good. And I didn't think I would be able to deadlift or squat again. And so going to the gym was just sucked. So I was like, and it was my identity. You know, this is early college. People looked at me as the big guy, the strong guy. And I was like, crap, what am I going to do? And this was when Lance Armstrong was racing in the Tour de France. And I had strong legs from squatting and deadlifting and doing all that. And my dad was a cyclist and he was like, just come on a bike ride with me. And I just crushed him up these hills and all that. He was like, dude, have you like done any cardio? I'm like, no. And I was like, well, I'm going to just keep doing this because I could put in that same intensity of squatting and deadlifting in a different way. And I could just crush people. And I was like, so I started bike racing and then I wanted to be a pro. So I knew after college, I did the pre-med undergrad biology, moved to Boulder, Colorado, which is where every endurance athlete. So Boulder, Colorado is like Santa Monica or Venice in terms of the gold, it's the Mecca.
Right.
It's like all the pro.
That's where you go.
That's where you go because you're training at high altitude in the mountains. So then you go to sea level and race and you just can crush people because your red blood cell saturation is so much higher. So got into bike racing and wanted to be a pro, got into the pro 1-2 category. There's different categories in that. Just realized there was no real future in that. And so then just went back to my roots and I still lifted weights, but not like I lost a lot of my size riding. And so now I've just been trying to maintain strength.
Did you mess with any PEDs while you were cycling?
I didn't. Yeah, but I can see how they would really help. Because
is there any chance that they would hurt in some way? I mean, like you said, you got up to like 235. Obviously, you wouldn't take the same amount and you wouldn't be on like a bodybuilding cycle for cycling necessarily. But, just gaining that amount of muscle mass, period. Like it still cost you something, right?
Totally. Yeah, that's a good point. So if I was to, and I'm not giving advice to anyone on PEDs for endurance purposes, but if I was to do, say, a stage race, like a Tour de France, I think at least like being on 200 milligrams of test a week would be good, maybe some growth hormone, because your recovery is so much better.
Right.
And what happens in any, if you're training, doing high volume CrossFit, like CrossFit Games, a stage race like the Tour de France or the Giro d'Italia, it's multiple days of really intense physical. So your free testosterone is going to take a dive. And so having that extra testosterone and having some GH in there
might even just keep you at a normal level, right?
Exactly. And so I think a lot of those guys, and I knew that Lance was doping because I could see like the roid muscle. And if you go back and look in like 2005, 2006, Lance Armstrong's quads and his calves, man, they were just jacked. Multiple striations. The vascularity was like, to me, that looked a little bit unnatural. So I remember talking to my dad. I'm like, there's no way he's not on something. He's like, he's the most tested athlete in the world. I mean, I still respect him. I don't care, because a lot of people in the tour were doing that. But yeah, I think it's the recovery is really it's a game changer.
How did you get into taking anabolics? Because you mentioned you started training at 14. And then how old were you when you started taking them?
Yeah, so I was 19. So I was young. So yeah, back then this was like I can't remember if I ordered this book on Barnes & Noble or Amazon.com. All I know is that I ordered this Anabolics Bible. I guess there's like 2 authors. There's some iterations of these things. So
William Llewellyn.
Llewellyn. So I remember, I was checking my AOL email and stuff like that because I was living with my dad, right?
Yeah.
And I was going to get this freaking book on steroids because that's how I was going to teach myself. There were some, so I remember the mailman coming down. I'm like, oh shit, I got to go get the book. Because if my dad, he would be excited that I'm buying a book, but he'd want to know what it is. So I got this book and I immediately went to the library and I just like I hid from everyone because I'm like, I don't want anyone to, they have syringes and bottles and a lot.
The front of the book has like a ton, like it's got like hundreds of steroids all over the front of the book, and it says it in giant letters, right?
So I knew I'd be busted. So I was trying to hide because people that I knew were studying for college and this. So I went to the public library and I just started reading everything I could about it, every different drug. And actually, if it like you guys did a podcast a few days ago, like if it weren't for PEDs, would Mark Bell be Mark Bell or all these different people? Arnold, you talked about, if it weren't for steroids, I don't know that I would be interested in science. I might have a totally different career path because I started learning about, cellular receptors and down regulation and the endocrine system. And those books were great. And so I started to figure out, okay, I probably don't need Halo. There's a lot of like drugs that only if you're really cutting, I just want to put on some size. So I was like, all right, I like Deca, Equipoise. And then I asked my buddy, he was like, and tell me if this is still the thing. Cause I've been out of this world for a while. He said, look, your first cycle, your receptors are there we go. So that was, I wasn't the biggest there, but I was 215 right on the right. So anyway, so my buddy was like, the first time you do this, your receptors are going to be very sensitive. So you just want to go big or go home. So I'm like, all right. So I did 800 milligrams of test. Deca was 400. And then just a little D-ball to kick it off. D-ball was like, I think in 25 or 50 milligram tabs. I can't remember. And I just did like 4 weeks of that.
Probably got you super bloated, right?
Dude, yeah, my face was just blown up. But right away it was like, and that's the thing, I think, the power of the mind. Like after your first injection, I remember that. Like I had a PR on the gym and I was like, there's no way it could.
Yeah, it doesn't hit you, like that.
But don't you?
Yeah. No, I mean, no, you feel superhuman.
You feel super,
because you know what it's supposed to do. So, but even the training intensity, when you get into like a middle of a set, you can kind of actually feel them. It's weird. It's hard to really describe because it does take a while for steroids to actually like really get into your system. Most steroids anyway. But sometimes you can feel it like mid set, and you've seen in here when people are just kind of going ham. And they do a set of like 6, but then they end up, or they're going for a set of 6 and they do like a set of 12.
Yep.
It's that push through like 8, 9, and you see the guy snap almost in his head, like I'm going for it. And they do extra. It doesn't mean that they're on steroids all the time. It just, when somebody is on them and you get to like that 8th, 9th rep, it almost feels like it's a little easier to finish them off because you get like a surge almost. It doesn't really give you energy, and it's not going to really, it's not going to automatically improve your endurance or anything like that, but it can help with almost just, I guess, aggression might not even be the right word, but the ability to really drive through something as hard as you possibly can.
Totally. I think you feel mentally like there's a spotter there, even if there isn't, right? And so I've been trying to say, because it's very tempting once you've done even TRT or whatever, or a cycle, you feel like I got to be on it forever. I had that mentality for a long time. And now I just convinced my mind that, I basically, I can do this naturally. And so I think some of it obviously is real. There's changes anabolically and so forth. But I think like I said, that first shot was way stronger. There's a big mental placebo component. So I try to play tricks with my mind to tell myself that I'm giving myself steroids even though I'm not, so that I have a PR, so that I'll do that 5th rep. So, I'll push it. And I think that's a big element that people should realize, like whether or not placebo is about 30% of any given thing, studies have shown. So you want to take advantage of that, trick your mind into thinking that you're taking stuff.